Welcome everyone, Adam the Woo here. Today's adventure will take us up to Burbank, California, to the original spot, the proposed location and planned area of what would become Disneyland. Not where it currently resides, in Anaheim. And it had a different name from the beginning and eventually morphed into what it has become. And that name focused around this guy. I'm inviting you to join me. Shall you? This is a subject matter I've wanted to cover for quite some time. Just getting my stuff packed up and ready to roll. Yep, you're right, Bigfoot. It is about 40 miles. I think it's more like 36 to be precise. You know, that's a great idea. Stop off at Griffith Park, give a little timeline. This carousel, which originally was in San Diego, placed there in 1926, in 1937, moved here on the side of this hill. At the moment is not open. You could almost call this the original party zone. And just like Club Cool at Epcot, just a little tie-in. Just like the water here. You don't want to drink the Beverly. It is a very well-known story that Walt himself used to bring his two daughters right here and would sit on one of the benches and watch them have a good time. And the nuance of that is that by being here, it gave him the idea to start a theme park. Now that has kind of been shortened a little bit to consider that by him doing that, that's how Disneyland came to fruition. But there is a step or two in the middle of that story that sometimes gets overlooked. It is all up to speculation, the precise date of when he would have been here. And it happened on more than one occasion. This was a regular occurrence that he would come hang out at. Diane and Sharon, his two daughters, were both born in the mid-30s. And because they were very young, it's safe to say it was probably late 30s, early 40s where that story would have been, along the timeline. So it would have been probably let's just say early 40s. But that would have been the first, at least on record, documented occasion where the wheels were in motion. That and, a little bit later, throughout the years, him visiting other amusement parks, attractions, and talking to those owners, and just kind of really thinking heavily about opening one. Nearly a full decade, 10 years, give or take, before he took the plans of what he thought would be up here in LA, but eventually ended up in Orange County. It's an interesting story about his daughter Diane. These carousels used to have brass rings where you would circle around, and if you were lucky or proficient enough, you could grab the brass ring. And Diane got one, not just one, but continually through the day. Kept getting them over and over. And as the tale is told, she did not do that on her own accord, even though she, might have used her expertise in the grabbing of the brass rings. She's helped along a little bit because her father, Mr. Disney, paid the on-staff employee to kind of help her out a little bit. Just kind of sweeten the deal. He wanted to make his children very happy. He wanted to see them happy, and that kind of escalated into making others happy. Who knows if that's even completely factual or just now steeped in folklore. But it's fun to think about. The benches out front the original ones have been removed and new ones placed. But inside, if you ever arrive while this place is fully operational, they have one of the benches next to an organ that was placed here in the 80s. It was not here in Walt's day, but it's pretty fantastic. And the organ plays while the merry-go goes round and round. There's even a piece of signage there referencing back to one of those benches. I believe there were 3, and they are still in existence. It's kind of neat to think about, if you will. Walt sitting right there in that spot. just enjoying the day. Before exiting on, however, quick thought, I should return here in the future and drink one of those bitter beverages at the old school party zone. In 1949, he purchased a house over in Holmby Hills. And a year later, he built a miniature railroad. And his wife did not really approve too much, so just to ease her thoughts, he called the miniature train the Lily Bell in honor of her. Well, it wasn't that she disapproved, she just wanted that area for a garden, but he had other ideas. And even though someone else lives in that home, the relics of what he created in the backyard have been moved about 2 miles from here through the park. In 1999, his trains and barn were moved here. The Los Angeles Light Steamers Railroad Museum. And last summer I was able to attend a party on the property. In attendance were Tony Baxter, Bob Gurr, some other Imagineers. We sat around, listened to some stories, learned some history. It was a really cool experience. But there are those train tracks moved from Walt's home and that barn. They used to also sit on his former property. And I mention this because this was his passion. That was what he kind of dove deep into for a couple of years, since from 1950 till around probably 51, 52, maybe 53, when all of his attention was devoted to the theme park. The original name, Mickey Mouse Park. I'm wearing an appropriate t-shirt, which the proposed spot is just a handful of miles, just a couple miles from the barn. I've also heard that Mickey Mouse Park, before they took it to the Burbank City Council, they did call it Disneyland. That's what I've heard anyway. Also want to note, by focusing on this miniature church, that there was another idea he had of brewing called Disneylandia. It's going to be a traveling exhibit of miniatures, and that got scrapped. Before heading over to the main destination, just want to say, when this place reopens, you got to check it out. It is steeped in history. Been here probably a dozen times, and will return once they reopen. More or less ground level, not too far up into the hills, only an elevation of 480. Population 500. I don't see anyone. To reiterate, up to this point, we got the carousel, which gave him some ideas, then his interest in trains, which we know where that's leading, and on to the next spot. Moving along up around this corner, hoping to get up a little higher so I can get a kind of a bird's eye perspective of what I want to see and match up. It's going to be a little tougher than I had thought to get my bearings from up the hill a bit. But notice this is a little artistic rendering when they were coming up with the ideas. On the bottom you see the LA River. You can faintly see it. So that would be where the property begins, and then heading upward. Above it is Riverside Drive. Now directly above Riverside Drive is Walt Disney Studios. That's where the water tower is. And then over on the far end, it's Buena Vista Street. So we got Buena Vista on the far end, and then above the proposed property, Riverside Drive, ending with the LA River Canal. Point of reference, there's the water tower. So this side of the water tower is Riverside Drive. The ABC building, which is also on their property, that is on the corner of Buena Vista Street. The far end of the frame of the ABC building would be, we're going to go down there, but I wanted to show it from up here, would be Buena Vista Street and Riverside. The top intersecting road corners there, which also was the entrance into Mickey Mouse Park, and the parking area on the opposite side of the road of Buena. A good place to park is here on Riverside Drive and Pear-ish Street, P-A-R-I-S-H, just a little bit down the way from the studios. And there is an entry point here that takes you onto the property. Now, for many, many years, I just assumed that all of this empty land used for horseback riding was going to be part of the park. You see the freeway, which when the original plans were being formulated did not exist. And that continues on. But the more research I did, I realized that it was going to be down that way a little bit, still in the empty area. Well, there are some buildings, but there's more of this up there. Where I will be walking to is from this direction, going this way, and I'll pinpoint when I get there to where it would have began. But notice there is a river ferry boat similar to the current rivers of America. And there's even a little hub there. No Main Street USA, but there is a hub similar to the spokes of a wheel, which have become very popular at all the Disney properties. Giving myself a little room, not wearing, well, you know, because there's no one within hundreds of yards from me. There are some houses over there on Riverside. Very interesting that in the greater Los Angeles, the hustle and bustle of a metropolitan area, that I am this away and alone from everyone. I could not completely confirm. It's kind of a gray area. What was going to be 8 acres. Now this behind me, I believe they were going to try to go to the city and get this extended. But that's not in the plans that I could find. The property line of what was going to be right up there. Kind of on the closest point of the building that's nearest to me, and then venturing that way. So if you just follow the line almost to where that electrical pole is, the big one there, towering up, you can see it above the peaks of the mountain. After re-looking at that photograph, a little bit different. So went along this way, property line, stretching here, and not that power pole, which is now on the far end of the screen, but kind of on the opposite end of the screen, more or less. This is just my guess. But I'm standing right on the property line, where the property line would have been. Which means the entryway would be right about here on this far end of ABC, and past that would be the parking lot. Making my way now under the freeway up to the riverbed. Now when the city council was approached, oh, it's getting dark in here. When the city council was approached, they said, we do not, it was denied. You know, what they wanted to do here in Burbank was said, that's not gonna happen. And one of the reasons is they did not want a carnival-like atmosphere, and stated, we don't want people falling in the river, swimming in the river. That's not what was probably gonna happen, but that was one of the reasons they gave. Just about where that train at the bottom is going around the tracks, just above where the concrete canal is. So would have had a train right where I'm standing, and then the ferry boat you see up there cruising around. That would be, we back up to give you the perspective. Can you just picture a ferry boat? Just imagine a ferry boat. What if? Wasn't a lot of room. Wasn't a lot of room here. It wouldn't be what we're used to, much smaller. You hear the traffic above going completely over the top of where the ferry boat would have been. Just a reminder, the freeway was not there then. So, train coming around the bend, Grand Circle Tour, right along this pathway, continuing past me, and that river right here. Not to be confused with the river the ferry boat would have been on. Train continuing on, more or less in this general area, and then taking a turn, going around. You see the tippy top of the animation building over there. Closer up to Riverside Drive is where that hub was. You know, just think partner statue right there in the center, and the train station right up against Riverside. Now in this section, which now we know is Main Street USA, but it was a different type of format. There was going to be a fire station, which we have, police station, which we had, or still have, in some format at the current park. Horse-drawn streetcar. I thought there was going to be people. Hiking back there, and there wasn't. Right in the thick of it. Once again, what if? What if it would have been approved? Attempting to give the best as far as property line goes. Look at the middle of the screen, not way up top, but middle. They just follow the very middle of the frame. Property line right in the middle, on that end. Continuing on over the current freeway. And then looking the opposite direction, panning this way. The animation building was not here, so there would have been a lot more room. And then ending more or less where that home is. Right there. That's it. 8 acres or so. Walt had been to a few amusement parks in his day, and his thoughts could be traced back to working at Laugh-O-Gram, talking to some of those who were on site, and he was overheard to say, if I ever open one myself, mine will be tidy and clean and different than those that have existed before mine. So he already was thinking before the carousel, before he got into the trains, most likely from a very young age, he had some sort of idea of what was going to happen. Hired Harper Goff to come up with the sketches, but a couple other architects added to it before in March of 1952 presented it to the Burbank Parks and Recreation Department, only to have it denied. In this spot were going to be canal boats, similar to Storybook Land. You can see the path there drawn out as it kind of goes in all different directions, but in a complete circle, but in its own makeshift way. And above that was an old west town. So right here, canal boats. Just have to use your imagination, almost where this shade is. Picture canal boats and the old west town, kind of right around there. And it's said he got the inspiration of that from Knott's Berry Farm, which opened years before. And you guessed it, even the whale that we've come to know oh so well was sketched out and gonna be right in this general vicinity. Right here. Even shows a ride vehicle boat going directly into his mouth. Pretty dang cool. Center of the waterway is an island. No indication that Tom Sawyer or, you know, way before Pirate's Lair would have ever been mentioned. But it would have sat right there. My side of the thoroughfare. If you are the type of person like I am that believes things happen for a reason, then it is a positive note that it was denied by Burbank, the Parks and Recreation Department. Because what happened later, a couple of years later, much more room, and obviously much more to do, and better in a lot of fashions than what would have been here. The popularity of Snow White, when that came out in '37, for many years, people wanted to see the studio, which is just right over there on the other side of the animation building. And Walt always had the idea, what can I do to draw people in instead of doing, you know, just a normal studio tour? And this was his idea. Well, what was gonna be here that eventually ended up in Anaheim, 30 miles south, give or take, from here. Before heading outward, before heading on property line, where it would have been right there, where this hedge is. Let's pan around. There's a gentleman walking back there, just passed by me. Have to wonder if he knows. He might be a long-time resident. Some know this fact, and some don't. If you're ever zipping down the freeway, passing Griffith Park, Walt's Barn over there, the LA Zoo, don't hesitate to look over this direction and just think to yourself, what if? It's a loud motorcycle. The reality is, he would have got his hands on all this, all that. It might have worked. It could have worked. Instead of just the 8 acres up there, this would be considerably more. 4 or 5 times as much. So it's possible. Could have been possible, but it wasn't, so moving on. No horse-drawn carriage round these parts, but there is a concrete horse head. Can't end this without one final stop.
Starting route to Disneyland Resort.
From this angle, you can see where the entrance would have been. Right there. Corner of Buena Vista Street and Riverside Drive. That's going to do it for today. If you're new here, please subscribe. By doing so, helps keep you in the loop. Up to date on future uploads here on this channel. Take it a step further. Ring that notification bell. And if you enjoyed this particular episode, give it a big thumbs up. Lets me know you care. I'll see you in the next video. The vlog is over.